This is Bob McCown, and you are in the press row.
Welcome to the press row. From sports media to startups, retail to revolutionaries. The press row. Authentic conversations with game changers and visionaries. Now here's your host, Jonah Siegel.
It's not very often that I get to speak to someone who I truly respect and admire, who I would call a legend. And today in the podcast, we do that. So sit back, relax, enjoy today's episode of In the Press Row. If you could just look into the camera and say for me, this is Bob McCown, and you are in the press row. Welcome back, Jonah, in the press row. And I'm not going to lie, I'm giddy. Sitting across from me, if you are not watching, is the sports talk legend, numero uno, if you will. The man who has talked to them all, the man who drove me home from work each and every day. He needs no other introduction other than that. The longtime host of both Primetime Sports and the Bob McCown podcast. He is Robert McCown. Bob, how are you? It's awesome to see you.
Well, it's great to see you, too. I'm doing all right. Still struggling a bit from the strokes that I had, but I'm doing as well as I could be imagined, I guess.
Well, I will tell you, for those who can't see Bob, you actually look, you look fantastic.
Thank you.
I was wondering, it's not been a kind winter to Torontonians. The snow is
kidding.
So for those who've had some mobility challenges, I can only imagine. And you look and sound fantastic. It is really good to see you. And I will tell you, in what has been a most interesting X number of months since you've been on the air, and I'm making air quotes, we have missed you significantly.
Thank you very much. I miss doing it, as a matter of fact. Yep.
So let me ask you quickly, how you feeling these days, Bob?
Well, my walking is a little bit off, and my speech is a little bit off. But otherwise, I guess I'm doing all right. I've recovered fairly significantly, but not fully. And I don't know whether I'll ever be able to be normal again.
I'm not sure what normal means. And again, you sound really good and you look fantastic. And again, I'll say,
thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So, curious, what's keeping you busy these days?
Not much, I'll tell you. Since I stopped doing the podcast a few months ago, I've been kind of in retirement. Now, I do own a wine. I used to own a winery. I only own a small piece of that winery now, but I still own 100% of the wine. It's Stony Ridge. And that's been keeping me a little bit busy. And but that's about it. I'm just relaxing and hoping the golf season comes soon and hoping I'll be able to play this year.
So you've professed over the years not to be a sports fan.
Right.
I know that baseball season is almost upon us. They're in spring training now. It always felt that of the sports, you were a Blue Jays and a baseball fan. Are you looking forward to the baseball season?
Oh, I always do. Yeah, very much. I started with the Blue Jays in 1977. I was their first PA announcer. And the station sent me to Florida, to Boston and New York. Actually, it was Labatt who sent me the year before the Blue Jays came in 1976. Then I went to spring training for 7 weeks, the first few years. So my attachment to the baseball team has been pretty significant. So I'm enthused about the baseball season. I'm not overly confident, but I'm looking forward to it.
So as I'm sure you've heard, it's gotten off to an auspicious start.
Yep.
It's gotten off to an auspicious start. They really hit the ground fumbling with the Vladimir Guerrero news that they did not sign him to an extension. Curious your take on how that whole thing went down.
Well, of course, I don't know very much anymore about the specifics of the negotiation. It sounds like Vladdy or his agent asked for a really big number. bigger probably than most people expected. I believe it was more than 400 million over 10 years. And it was a number the Blue Jays just weren't comfortable with. So now it remains to be seen whether they make an attempt to sign him again or maybe trade him during the season.
You were at Rogers a long time. You have an unusual relationship with the company and with some of the key players who might still be around. Did you get to know Edward Rogers Jr. at all while you were there?
No, I met him a few times, but really didn't know him. He was he had a minor role in the company back then. Ted Rogers was the president, and then there were a couple of others, good and bad. But he was not the key guy at that point. He has sort of worked his way into being the key guy right now, but I really don't know him that well.
I mean, can you see a world? I mean, it seems to me that it's going to take his involvement to get this done if it were to get done. Someone's going to have to stroke a mighty big check. Do you see that happening?
No, I don't. I think if he was going to be heavily involved, it would have happened already. I think now it's up to the guys on the baseball team to make a decision. And the decision they've made so far is we can't sign him. And I'm not sure they'll be able to at the end of this year either.
I mean, it's been argued by me that the price of doing business is only going to go up. So if he wanted a big number now, you'd think that number is only going to go up at the end of the year.
Well,
assuming he has a
perhaps.
decent season.
The one thing that's interesting that very few people talk about is that I believe that a first baseman is the least valuable position on the team. Almost anybody can look good at first base. Almost anybody can play first base. So, you need power hitting outfielders. You need a good catcher. You need effective middle infielders. And you'd like to have a good, strong third baseman. But first base, almost who cares? And that's his position right now. What I was hoping was that he would go back to third base last year and reestablish himself at that position. That would have helped him too in signing a new contract, I believe.
This front office has certainly gone out of their way not to injure themselves to the fan base. It has been an interesting relationship, to say the least. Do you think they can survive in Toronto if he leaves?
That's a good question. I don't know, but I would say probably not. They will probably get blamed if he leaves. Now, the truth is they should be blamed right now, not a year from now. A year from now is of no consequence. If you believe that this team is not ready to win, then it's their fault, and you should act accordingly. But a year from now is when they'll probably react, and I think that's in error.
Right. So if you were on the radio, your take would probably be that it's on Edward Jr. then, no? That's the Bobcat that I would think.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know who's running this team. Is Edward Jr., is the president of Rogers running it? Is Shapiro the key guy, and he's making the decisions regardless of what Rogers wants? Probably not, but, I really don't know who's running it. I used to know who ran it. It may have been owned by other people, but Paul Beeston ran the team. He made the decisions. Now I just don't know who does.
So it's an interesting question because you've seen a world where it was corporately owned and we had a face and you had a name. The world has changed. Like if you look down in the NFL, now they're letting private equity owners into sports. Like where sports is going is certainly changing, where there's a face of the franchise. Do you think that's a good thing?
I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter to me. I really don't care. I don't worry about ownership. Somebody's going to own the franchise and they're going to stick their nose in it. And, justifiably so. It's their money. You want to control your money, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
So why wouldn't they want to control theirs? I don't blame the owners. I think they're mostly, rich idiots. They really don't know anything about sports, and they show it most of the time. Some are stupider than others, but they're all stupid.
I mean, but the problem is it's a passion game, and there's a bit of a civic trust there, no?
Well, fans like to think that. I don't think owners care about that.
No, they don't care, but it does exist, doesn't it?
I don't think so.
I mean,
I think it's, maybe you think it should, maybe fans think it should, but it doesn't. At the end of the day, owners care about themselves, period. End of story.
And so on the one hand, we've got an entity who now has owned one team independently, and they're now going to own all those teams independently. As someone who lives in the city, and we've seen the lack of results on one, should we worry about that transaction now taking place?
Well, no, because each of the teams is run by somebody different, and they are responsible for the success or failure of that team. The owner isn't. The owner provides the money, but in most cases, there's a cap. Well, in all cases, there's a cap. So there's a maximum as to what that owner can spend. And each of the Toronto teams, I believe, is at the cap. They are getting maximum dollars. So it's not like there's a cheap owner who is screwing them out of a chance to win. They have what they need. They just need the right people to run it.
Right. So if people were going to argue that Rogers himself was guilty of anything, it's being loyal to Shapiro and Atkins at a time where he shouldn't be, right?
Maybe. That may be true. That much I would tend to agree with. I'm not sure that I would fire Shapiro. Atkins, I think, has done a terrible job. So he would go. Shapiro is more of the business guy. I don't think he runs a team per se. He is still involved, but he is not the guy running the team, the players. So I'd probably give him another chance, but I'd make a change at GM.
You actually think that there is a line between the two, between
Yep.
Shapiro and Atkins?
Sure, I do. Yep. I think Shapiro has spent the last 2 years worried principally about the renovation at the stadium. And that's been his big job. And he also, remembers 2 years ago, he redid Dunedin.
Correct.
So he has been more of the landlord than involved in the operation day to day of the team.
Yeah. And to his credit, he did get Rogers to open the checkbook. I mean, they have spent a lot of money and shown a willingness to do so.
They're one of they're about fifth in spending overall, something like that. That's pretty good.
So I'm curious. I know you're not a hockey fan per se.
No,
Admittedly. Did you watch the tournament that just ended?
100%. It was fantastic. Fantastic. Unfortunately, we'll probably never see one like it again. The NHL's plan is to do a World Cup alternate with the Olympics.
Right.
So every 2 years we get Olympics or World Cup. And I don't think there's a plan to do another Four Nations Cup ever again. So that was it. But it was really, really, really fantastic. And it's put the other leagues under tremendous pressure to provide a mid-season all-star type format that is as compelling as the hockey one was. It was great.
So it's not much of a surprise that it was successful in Canada. Why do you think it was so appealing south of the border?
Well, I don't know exactly, but the fact that this was like it was done at the All-Star Game time. It was a version of the All-Star Game, in fact. But we have come to think of All-Star Games as being unattractive, disinteresting. And this was anything but. This was 4 hockey teams going 100% all the time, really trying to win. And I hope that was the reason why it compelled my American friends to be involved, enjoy it. It certainly was the reason why I enjoyed it. If it had been an all-star game format where the guys were out there dancing around and not caring, would we have been as compelled? No. No way.
No, even the games that Canada wasn't involved in were great to watch. It was good theater.
I know it was all real hockey, and it was the best players in the world playing their best. And that's been my argument for years on all-star games, is they are not like when I was a kid. The baseball all-star game used to be real baseball. Pete Rose running into guys at home plate. Flossie blocking the plate. It was wonderful. It was the best players doing what they do as best they can. Those days are gone, I'm afraid.
So I'm not sure if you've been caught up in the hubbub, but it seems to me that Wayne Gretzky has suddenly become public enemy number 2 in Canada. Any thoughts?
Well, not really. I don't care what he thinks, what he says, what he does. He has his pals, and I guess Trump is one of his pals. We could condemn him for that, I guess. I would. I think Trump is a jerk. But, I was a little surprised that he seems to have taken favoritism with the U.S. team because he's been involved with Team Canada, many times in the past. So it's surprising. But, why worry about it? He's yesterday's newspaper. He isn't involved in hockey really anymore. I don't pay any attention to him.
But are you surprised at how negative the response is in Canada is?
Oh, not really. No.
You're not?
Nope. Fans get bent out of shape over ridiculous things all the time. And I'm never surprised by anything they say or do.
I just think that if I had said to you 5 years ago that next to Donald Trump, Wayne Gretzky is going to be the most hated person in Canada, you'd be stunned and you'd have me checked into the loony bin. Well,
you wouldn't have said that, would you?
No, but that's my point.
Well, look, he's entitled, I guess, to do whatever he wants to do. I really couldn't care less about him. He's a friend, but his life is his life. His decisions are his decisions. He is entitled to make them. If it makes him an enemy in Canada, so be it. I don't know that he has thought much about it. Like, what happens the next time he is introduced on Canadian ice somewhere? He probably will get booed loudly. And I wonder whether that makes him wonder whether he made the right decision or not.
I wonder if it makes him wonder whether he should go or not.
He may well not go anywhere. Yep, you're right.
I just find it's not his actions that surprise me. I'm more surprised by the reaction of Canadians because, the reputation of being so nice, the reputation of Gretzky, that's what's more surprising to me.
Well, I think we have to remember this whole thing started with Trump and the tariffs, when he got elected. And that in Canada, booed the U.S. anthem at hockey games. Made them boo the anthem at this tournament.
Yeah.
And the attitude of, there being our best friend, America being our best friend, I think is no more. And Trump says the tariffs are going to come again March 1st. So I think we are reacting as Canadians against America. Not so much against Gretzky, but against America or anything American.
It's certainly interesting times. Have you been watching the Leafs at all this year?
Only a little bit.
Were you surprised, or what was your reaction to Austin Matthews not scoring in overtime, Mitch Marner, making the big assist. Do you think that has any effect on them as they head down the stretch into the playoffs?
I doubt it. I don't know, but I doubt it. I'm happy for Marner. He is my probably my favorite Leaf player.
Really?
Yep. I think he is underrated and unappreciated. And
why?
Why?
Yeah.
A guy who can control the puck and set other players up as well as he does is always underappreciated. And he is, I think, the best in hockey today at that.
Okay.
And I'd pay him a lot of money to stay with the Leafs, but it's not my money. So,
so what do you think it is about the fan base has a serious problem with them? I mean, me included. What is it? Why?
Well, tell me why you have a problem with it.
My issue is until that game, he has not proven to be a big game hunter. That when the chips are on the table, he's become Casper the Ghost.
Well, you may think that. I don't.
Okay.
I think what happens in the playoffs in the NHL is that everybody raises their level of the game and defense becomes much more important. And it becomes much harder for him to do in the playoffs what he does in the regular season. Will that continue? I don't know. To blame him for the Leafs' lack of success is ridiculous.
I didn't say that. Those are two different things.
I understand. Right? But you're intimating that.
Right.
How many goals should the captain have scored in the postseason?
A lot. I'm with you. He's in the
scored
same boat.
Nearly a goal a game in the NHL regular season. Did he score that many in the playoffs? No. And so why not blame him?
I do. I have the same problem with him.
Well, that much I agree with. I'm a Marner fan and not a Matthews fan. I think Matthews is a very highly skilled player, but I'm not sure he's a good leader.
I mean, I guess the question comes down to, is the problem the players or the sum of the players with that hockey team? To me, that's what it boils down to.
I don't know the answer to that, to tell you the truth. I never thought about it that way.
But they're running out of chances, aren't they? I mean, Shanahan's deal is up, right? Like, they've got to be getting close to running out of chances.
Well, I'm surprised Shanahan's still there, to tell you the truth. Keith Pelly is a very good friend of mine.
I was just going to say, Keith Pelly.
Very well. And we are very close friends. I haven't talked to much since he came back. A few times, but not much. I will wait to see how Keith reacts at the end of this season. Sorry.
No problem.
It'll be interesting to see whether he makes a change in the presidency. I think he probably will. Although, again, the performance of the hockey club really isn't on the president.
Right. That was my next question.
And the coach. So maybe Keith will look at how they are doing as a business rather than how they are doing as a team and react accordingly with Shanahan.
I mean, I think that's the problem, is that as a business, they're probably doing pretty well, except winning is the ultimate business success. If you look across the room at the Raptors, right? They never did better than the year they won.
Well, but the Raptors are not the same as the Leafs. Yes, they sell out, but they do not have anywhere near the revenue that the Leafs have. Nowhere near. They're not as big nationally as the Leafs are, in spite of the fact they are Canada's team.
Right.
If the Raptors, look at the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays probably make several $100 million a year being Canada's team, just Canada's team.
Yeah, of course.
The Raptors make next to zero as Canada's basketball team. They're not considered the national team. the Blue Jays are. Now, can that change? I think Keith will try and change that, but I'm not sure how.
Is that because the NBA is just so popular and so good at marketing that people in other markets are fans of other teams and other players? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think basketball is very big in Canada. We like it, but it's not our game. And it runs against hockey in terms of the schedule. And we are a hockey nation, not a basketball nation. Baseball works because it's summertime.
Right.
And we don't have another sport to compete with it. And the Blue Jays have been around for, 50 years almost. So there's history on their side too.
So it is, I guess, common rumor of the battle between Edward Rogers Jr. and Masai Ujiri the last time his contract was up. We're getting close to Masai's that deal coming up for renewal. With change in ownership at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, there's a lot of buzzing that Masai could be in jeopardy again. If you own the team, would you rehire Masai?
Yes, I would. I like Masai. I've got to know him fairly well. I think he's a smart guy. I predicted, maybe unwisely, but I predicted 20 wins for the Raptors this year. They will easily surpass that. And I think that's Masai being smarter even than I thought he was. He has the ability to put together a team. It may not be good, but it's not horrible. And he constantly impresses me with the decisions he makes. I'm not sure that Ted Rogers agrees, but I would hire him back.
Do you think he could get another job before the word fired came out of anyone's mouth?
Maybe, yep.
Do you think he's worried?
No, I don't think he cares at all.
Right.
He makes a lot of money. And I think he's happy in Toronto generally. The one thing they've done that I know he loves is his relationship with basketball in Africa.
Right.
And they've been very supportive of all of that. And I think he is very happy about that and very grateful. I don't know if he would have the same reaction if he went somewhere else. Probably not.
You okay for time?
A little bit more. It's okay.
Yeah. You tell me. I want to be respectful of your time.
Well, I'm all right for about 10 minutes or so.
Perfect.
That's all right.
So, yeah. So, you did thousands of hours of radio.
Right.
And then we spoke in 3 years ago. And at that time, you had done 300 something shows of a podcast.
We did 1,000.
You did 1,000. So there you go.
Yep.
If you had to pick one, did you like one of the mediums better than the other?
Probably radio and television.
You did.
Yeah, just because I think, you never thought about much, but we used to have nearly 1 million people a day watch or listen to the show. In the podcast business, it's a lot less. And although we did video like you are, my sense was that most people just listened. They didn't watch. And that always bothered me. I don't know why, but it always bothered me. So radio and TV seemed to be much bigger. And so I don't know, I was much younger. I didn't have as much experience. We had great success with the podcast in getting guests. So that didn't stop. And of course, we didn't pay guests. So it was constantly surprising that people would give 45 minutes or whatever of their time to me without getting any return. And I tried very hard to get sponsors to kick in something for them, but I never could.
Well, you had an awesome co-host and sidekick in Shannon.
Yep.
And the product was fantastic.
Good. Thank you.
The reason I'm surprised is just that today, when something happens in the sports world, I yearn for you and John to be on my playlist, because the beauty of it would be you could have that guest on and you could talk as long as you wanted about whatever you wanted without having to do a traffic update, without having to do a news
I
update.
understand that. Yep.
And to me, if I wanted to watch it, I could watch it. But if I was out on my walk and I just wanted to listen in my ear, I could just listen in my ear. And the beauty of it is, unlike that time where I'd be driving home and I'd listen to you fighting with Doug McClain, which is one of the greatest moments in radio history in my mind, I had to listen to the end of that in my driveway. There was no way. Yeah, well, there's no other way to do it. Whereas
you
now,
do the car, huh?
Right? No, because it was captivating. Whereas now, I could start on my laptop and decide I need to go for a walk, or I could be in my car listening. But if I go to the grocery store, I can put you into my ears.
Right.
Like it's so attuned to our lifestyle. But more importantly, it seemed more attuned to your lifestyle, which was if you're talking to Brian Burke, or you're talking to Randolph Sugar, or you're talking to Dave Perkins or Doug McClain, and they're in the middle of something great, you don't have the idiot producer in your ear going, got to go to a break, got to go to break, got to go to traffic.
Guess,
and that just seems so much better.
I suppose. We did have breaks in the podcast, but we took
But they were your breaks.
Excuse me. In many ways, I wish I was still doing it.
I just mean the format just seems so much more natural to you and how you operate. That's all.
Well, Shannon quit. He went back to doing hockey, and I guess he will be doing probably having a big role with Amazon in the future. So I don't blame him. But the real reason we quit doing the podcast was because advertisers didn't abandon us, but they left. We used to make a fair bit of money doing the podcast. It was $1 million podcast. And when it became a $1,000 or several $1,000 podcast, I was paying co-hosts and producers, but not me. I was doing it for nothing. I did it for nothing for 2 months. And I finally said, this is too much work to do it for no money. So that's why I quit. Now, some advertiser came along and said, here's a whack of money. Do it again, I probably would. So I miss being on. I miss having my say. But I don't miss doing it for nothing.
If you could talk to a couple of guests, who would you like to talk to right now? Besides me, of course.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't really have anybody that I haven't talked to before that I want to.
No, but even if listen, I know we talked, Jim Brown's one of your favorites, but you've seen what's going on in the world is messed up right now. There's awesome things going on. You saw the Super Bowl, the Blue Jays are going on, the Leafs, we just had that tournament, golf season's going on. You have the cachet and the ability to get anyone. I'm curious who you'd like to speak to.
Well, the one guy of note that I've never talked to is Tiger. And the truth is, I think he'd be a crummy interview.
Right. I was just going to say.
I'm not really that worried about him. I like Rory McIlroy. I think he'd be good. I've never talked to him. Otherwise, I can't think of anybody that, just the usual suspects. Okay. The people I've done before.
I mean, what I found really interesting about the podcast that you did with John was that when you pivoted to players,
excuse me.
No problem.
Go ahead.
When you pivoted to modern players, Stamkos, even Jason Spetz at the time, guys who, and he wasn't playing, but more modern players.
Yeah.
They loved you guys. They loved coming on. They loved the cachet. They knew who you guys were.
Well, they listened, right?
Yeah.
One of the great things, it was always interesting to me that I would have somebody on and they'd say, Bob, I'm a big fan.
Right.
you never think about celebrities who listened, whether they're athletes or not, but they did. And that was most gratifying.
Listen, I'm not just saying it because you're across from me virtually, but there's a void in the marketplace for what you brought, and nobody does it. There's lots of good podcasts out there. Don't get me wrong. There's the awesome part about podcasting is when I look at my podcaster, I don't have to listen to a whole show. The smart ones break it into segments, so I can pick and choose what I want to listen to. So I've got lots to listen to. The difference is there's nobody who does it your way, your style, in my opinion, and that's a void that's missing.
Well,
so
the one thing I've noticed of late, I don't watch a lot of TV or listen to a lot of radio, but everything seems to be hockey this time of year.
Well, look where you live.
Well, I understand, but you know what? I was on the air for nearly 40 years. How much hockey do you think I did?
Zero.
Well, not zero, but a small amount, maybe 20, 30% hockey. That's it.
Right,
and I
because
was number one for a long time.
Yeah, because you built your business, you built your reputation on, and I said this to you before. You were the nightline of sports radio. It didn't matter what the story was. You had the principles the next day or that day.
Well, that's part of it, but we went out and looked for non-hockey stories. You know, we weren't compelled to doing hockey every day. And the guys that do it now, that's what they do. It's hockey, hockey, hockey. Sportsnet is hockey almost 24 hours a day. They have almost no other sports on there. TSN has a show on, a radio show on TV every day. What do they talk about mostly? Hockey. Yep. Well, that's part of the reason I'm not such a big hockey fan, because I don't think that it's this kind of sport that you can analyze well, and you can't talk about it endlessly. You can't pick apart good plays from bad plays because they're not written down anywhere. They're just guys out there skating around trying to get open. Football has plays. Basketball has plays. Baseball, even guys are a bunch of individuals, 9 individuals trying to do their job the best they can. They can't worry about somebody else. They're not in a position to do that. Does a hitter, when he goes to the plate, think about the next guy up? No. He worries about himself. Hockey is not a game I think you can analyze endlessly. But these hockey people, they don't know anything else. That's all they try and do.
Well, let's be honest, though. What percentage of the hockey talk is let's trade this guy, let's sign this guy, let's move that guy, let's find.
You know,
I know, but that's what people want to hear, and that's what they listen to.
No,
right?
It's not what they want to hear. I prove that's not what they want to hear. What they want to hear is intelligent conversation.
What I meant was that's what they're hearing now.
Well,
right?
that's what they get now.
Right. How many insiders are there? How many insiders are there?
Well, who cares about any hockey insiders? They don't know any more than you or I.
Right. So, but here's the problem. I live in Seattle. I don't listen to Seattle sports radio. Do you know why?
Why?
Because 12 months of the year, all they talk about
football.
Seahawks.
Yep.
When I lived in Miami, 12 months of the year, I listened to your twin named Hank Goldberg talk about the Miami Dolphins.
Yep. Was that WIOD?
No, he was on WQAM.
Oh, okay.
With Neil Rogers.
But I only asked because I took a job with WIOD many, many years ago. I wondered if that was still there.
It might be. You go to Detroit, 90% of the content, Lions, right?
Yep.
Like,
I get it.
So in Toronto, it's hockey. Like, unfortunately, they tend to dictate to where the bread is they think is buttered, and the content in Toronto is Leafs.
Unquestionably.
But that's what made your show different, right? And by the way, what killed the competition was everyone tried to replicate Primetime. And what made the current leader, Overdrive Unique, was they never tried to be you. They were just four guys sitting in a sports bar talking sports, which was very different.
Talk hockey. That's what they did then.
Right.
That's what they do now.
Right. But it's a different format. At least it wasn't trying to be you.
I guess.
The other guys all tried to replicate you.
I guess.
Anyways, it's awesome to see you. I'll say it again the same way I started. You look fantastic.
Well, let's do this again sometime.
I would love to have you on. I will say this. I'm fortunate in that the bulk of the people that listen to this for some ungodly reason tend to be in the industry. So if you're listening to this, Bob looks good. You can see him. You can hear him. He should have a podcast. And Bob, you don't need to do it every day. You should do once a week. You should be on once a week.
Too.
You should be on once a week. You have a good opinion. You have good thoughts. You could talk to good people. You could talk about the business, and someone would pay you to do it. That's what I need
right now. Is I need somebody to give me a few bucks to do it. I don't need a lot of money. I have worked almost 50 years in this business. I've done all right, but I will not keep doing it for nothing. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, I hear you. Well, my plea is, and I'm going to make some calls that somebody helps Bob out and I don't mean it that way. Sorry. Helps the audience out and gets Bob back on the air. And
well, that's very kind.
It should be. I don't think it has to be more than once a week. I'm being serious. It doesn't have to be the drag of every day. I think that's a lot. But I think if you did a show a week,
I used to do 3 hours every day. To do 1 hour a day was like a vacation.
I think if you had the task of a show a week, the Bob McCown show once a week, I think that'd be fantastic.
Well, you're very kind. Listen, I wish you good luck, and happy times listening to Seattle football talk.
I told you I don't listen to it.
Oh no. Well, I wouldn't either.
For the same reason you can't listen to hockey talk, I can't listen. There's just not that much to talk about, especially not in February.
I know, you're right. You're right.
Robert, it's fantastic. I got to tell you, I went searching today. I'll finish with this. I went searching today to find a clip of Shaky starting a show with you, because that is what the moments I haven't heard one of those in ages. I can't find it. I wanted to hear the hello, Robert, and I couldn't.
Oh yeah. That was a long time ago, wasn't it?
I missed that. That was sports radio in its golden moment, in my opinion.
Well, he was quite a guy. We had lots of fights. I'll tell you.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah.
About what?
He was miserable as all get out most of the time.
More miserable than Damien?
Maybe not, but that's a good one. He was he had an attitude every day when he walked in. And it wasn't a friendly attitude. And I tried to be the kind of guy who would bring out the best of them. And usually I could get him to turn into funny Jim Hunt as opposed to angry Jim Hunt. But I do miss him. It's been a long time. I miss all the guys. It was a good group.
Who do you still speak to?
Oh, hardly anybody. Because my speech is difficult.
No, it's not. That's bullshit. You sound terrific.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, but I can hear it, and it's hard for me to talk. It puts a real strain on my body, believe it or not.
Well, that's why you should do a show once a week. But I'm telling you right now, for today,
time on the phone.
For today, you sound terrific.
Well,
I'm being serious.
All right. Well,
thanks, Robert.
Thank you very much.
We'll do it again in a couple of months. Soon. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you to Bob McCown for today's episode of In the Press Row. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Bob is a good human being, a great guest, and a fantastic storyteller. As always, if you would like to appear in the press row, you know how to reach me on all the various social media channels. You can always reach me at jonah@yyzsportsmedia.com. If you'd like to advertise, same channels. Please subscribe wherever you are watching or listening to this. And We will see you next time in the press row.